So, welcome to the next edition of the Rare Business Podcast. With me today, I have Ben Velker, who is the VP of Marketing at EdgeNet. Hi, Ben. How are you doing?
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm very well. So, Ben, for the benefit of our listeners and readers, can you tell us a bit about the work that you do and kind of what EdgeNet's all about and what EdgeNet does?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. We synchronize product data. We help suppliers aggregate, collect, improve, and then synchronize it to retailers.
Yeah.
So anything that's happening, if you walked into a Lowe's, an AutoZone, and needed to get more detail about the products, it would come through our service. Also, all the e-commerce sites that many large Fortune 50 retailers use our data to power those sites.
Okay, perfect. Now, I know that we were connected because EdgeNet's gone through a bit of I focus on customer service and customer experience, and we were connected because I heard about how you've almost like reappraised your approach to kind of customer service. So you've learned some kind of hard lessons the hard way, and almost had to do a bit of a reboot around your approach. So I was wondering, could you give me a little bit of a history, a little bit of background, tell me a little bit about what you've done and why you've done it, what that means, and so what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. So, traditionally there can be somewhat of a combative relationship between retailers and suppliers, where retailers need this data and can ask for it, in fairly rough ways. Even in the news several weeks ago, I saw Target is contemplating $10,000 to $15,000 fines for inaccurate product data. I know Walmart is already on that path. So it's very important to the retailers that this product data be accurate, and they can have a tendency to be very demanding. And what we try to do is stand in between the retailer and the supplier and help encourage the supplier to see all the value that they can get when they have standard product data and how that can be sent out to many different retailers, so it minimizes the amount of time they're doing duplicate work. And what we found is, as easy as we try to make that with our software, it still can be difficult for people. And if they still, as suppliers, if they don't understand fully understand the why of all these additional requests that keep coming, retailers are wanting more and more unique data about the products, because it's how they want to differentiate against their competitors, right? Another retailer. They want to have this type of data. So they're asking for more information. This ultimately leads to almost a mistrust and a misunderstanding from the supplier. They just feel like they have to do all this work and it's never good enough. So, in fact, our software grades their data and provides them a score on the quality of the data. And ultimately what we've found recently is we really need to provide more why for these suppliers and bring them into the same room as a retailer so that they can understand why they're doing all this work, what it's going to be used for, and now all of a sudden we found great uptick in their ability to respond to a retailer's request has gone way up. And then ultimately where we've really found ourselves helping these customers is with actually having to prime the pump and actually helping them put the data in for them to get going. Okay. And that empathy of understanding the supplier's pain and then setting up departments and procedures and people to go all the way to the point of their pain, sit next to them, and help them solve these problems through our software has led to huge amount of thanks from these suppliers in a big way.
Okay. So, I mean, because the thing that really interests me and about what you're kind of saying, because you sort of alluded to that, and this is one of the things that got us connected, was that whilst there's many technology firms, when they think about trying to improve their service or experience, they almost default to more technology or more code or so on and so forth. But actually, you kind of went exactly the opposite way and turned around, went almost take a bit of an anti-tech, and you talked about that empathy and sitting next to people and getting people in the room. I mean, so can you tell me kind of what you've kind of done and how you've done it to make that happen? Because you've got a specific initiative around that that sort of amps that up as it were.
Yeah, absolutely. I think our main point is to make sure that nobody slips through the cracks, right? And when you approach this with technology, it still can be, you still have to guide them to understand where they are, and they might not even be on that page, right? They really could be lost so many levels deep.
Right.
That the only way to really understand is to have a human listen to another human, hear, read between the lines, and then back up to where they are, and then help them get back on track. And so we see, rather than we need to have all this technology so that we have a low cost of doing business, right? That's what a lot of other tech companies would do, and we'll force people through that channel, and that way our costs don't get out of control. We want to flip that a little bit and say, we're willing to spend almost any cost to make sure our customers understand the value, can use the tool, and thrive.
Yeah.
And then, when that happens, our ways we can incorporate profits in the future is finding ways to use technology to replicate as best as possible what a human could do to find out where they are in the process. But that has to be subservient, right? It can't be the other way around.
Right.
And so we see it as a way we can get, costs down, but that's a future event. We're working that way, but we don't want in any way to mess with current customers needing current help right now.
Okay. And is that all part of what an initiative that I learned about, which is your EdgeNet Academy?
Yeah, so what we've done is we've said, look, we can always train people, right, when they call in and want to understand how to use the software, they want to understand how to get value, they want to understand what they're doing. They can always get that. But really, we're attacking something that's fairly complex, and this is not each company, each supplier or brand or manufacturer, the three of those are sort of interchangeable here, have very specific IT or business predicament that they're in. And so for them to understand how our powerful software can help them achieve these retailer requests, it's just sometimes too much to do over the phone. And so what EdgeNet Academy has done, it's allowed people to come. Our headquarters are in Nashville. It's a thriving city right now. People love coming there. And so we create, at our corporate headquarters, put all these suppliers and a number of retailers around the same table and let them hear from each other on why this is done. And then they see this back and forth of how this whole thing can work. And now they're not, we're eliminating these email chains that can go 80 back and forth long, right? And because they can understand what the other people mean, they use our service to facilitate. So we're getting to value faster for both sides.
Right. Okay. And tell me, so is that something? And is that a new department that you have kind of created to do that, or is that something just it gets added onto training, or account management, or kind of support, or how does that work?
Yeah, we've actually broke away from customer support. Customer support is helping people that have problems. Got it. Noted. Now we've created a separate department and just funded it with its own director and 6 employees underneath it. And that entire department is devoted to nothing but making sure that people really understand how to get value out of the software for themselves.
Right.
In all the while fulfilling these requests by retailers for more data. So we're trying to kill several birds with one stone, but what we don't want with our customer support entity is more, the software. I have some very technical problem that I need to get resolved. That is what support is for, right? Customer success actually asks, are you sure you even want to be approaching it that way, right? Like, what is the overall intent of the work you're doing today? And why don't we help you restructure this a different way? And then you could do this for this retailer and this for this retailer. And we just get these, this light bulbs going off, big eyes, huge amount of appreciation and thanks. And all the while, this is happening at the EdgeNet Academy, where we have the retailers present.
Right.
And that, what's so key for that is the retailer starts realizing the effects of all the requests they have on the supplier.
Right.
And that's just, it's been great. It's almost like we look at each other and wonder how we've been able to not do something like this for a decade. But very, very excited with where we are in it right now.
Excellent. I mean, it sounds like you've almost kind of gone, for want of a better description, you put 2 warring factions in the room, and they've actually realised that they're actually not that different, and they want the same thing.
That's a great way to say it, and I think too often software companies that pride themselves, that are sort of network solutions, right? And they're bringing parties together. Yeah. They almost are incentivized to say, "Hey, you guys don't need to be together now, right? Because of our software."
Sure.
And that's the exact opposite, right? We want to bring each other together so that you fully understand how you're talking to each other through the software, and that was a big surprise for us. We didn't think that was going to happen. Mm-hmm. We just brought retailers in because we thought it would just help bring more suppliers to the Academy. Right. And it turns out that is the biggest, that both sides really just point to that as being some of the best parts of the Academy.
Fantastic. But I also kind of know that when you were developing this approach, that there's a couple of things I'd be interested to understand on this, is that you decided when you were implementing the EdgeNet Academy sort of approach and the customer success sort of strategy, is that you decided to put all of your sales efforts on hold whilst you were doing this. Now, so there's 2 things. One, why did you do it that way? Is that because you wanted to get everybody on the same page? And 2, how did your salespeople kind of like respond to that?
Yeah, we did. One, we thought our salespeople really should understand this dynamic fully. Right. And for them to just see it from another department, they don't really appreciate it. Number 2, we think it would make them better salespeople because we think that this is what makes us uniquely valuable to a retailer. Right. Right. We can now go to a retailer and explain to them that we're in the best position to help them train their suppliers on how to get in the modern age, right? Yeah. How to give them the amount of data that they need and spend the time and the money to get accurate quality product data. Many of these suppliers still don't really care about that, right? They just want to sell their product. They don't want to mess with all this other stuff, and it's an additional cost, right? Yeah. So these retailers know this, and they struggle with this. So for our salespeople to be able to go to the retailer and explain this story to them as to why and how this is crucial to how the whole enterprise should operate, we thought it was incredibly valuable, and it has proven that way. We've since, when we formalized the department that I spoke of before, the customer success department, at the same time, we then pulled our salespeople back out of that to put them back on the track of having more communication with additional retailers and suppliers to join the network.
Okay, fantastic. And so, I guess this is the money question. I guess it's like, so what have been the business results that you've seen as a result of this kind of new approach, this actually anti-tech EdgeNet Academy customer success approach?
Yeah, so our churn rate, that is the rate that suppliers decide that they no longer want to be a part of the network, right? We have annual contracts, and our churn rate, we've seen a drop in half.
Wow. Okay.
Immediately. So we're very, very happy about it.
Okay. And how about your retail kind of clients? Are you seeing an uptick in their sort of satisfaction and engagement as well?
Yes, we've definitely seen that. The data quality scores are much higher.
Okay.
Because it prompts the supplier to go back in and work harder. And the funny thing we found, they're willing to work harder to improve those scores when they have met the retailer face to face, right? Okay. And before the academy, right, this was just not happening. These were two people in two different departments, right? Someone in a very low department, maybe at one supplier, speaking to someone in the department at a retailer, and they had never met each other, and so the supplier was never ready and willing to do additional work to really improve the product data. Now they are. We've seen a big uptick in our data quality scores.
Okay, fantastic. And so, kind of moving on. I mean, what do you think what are the big challenges, or what's the next big thing for kind of EdgeNet when it comes to sort of improving, extending your customer service? Is it more FaceTime or is it more tech?
It's more. That's great. It's actually more tech, and so that would be my big recommendation for people is to go full on FaceTime first, right? You just can't do this slowly. You have to sit next to somebody and fully understand their pain. Yeah. And then you can find ways to make it simpler, cleaner, add additional training. And if you go into it thinking, oh, we're only going to spend, let's spend $50,000 on it, you're going to end up, creating something that is not great. I think it's almost like thinking of yourself as a really small upstart business again, right? If you're a lot of these companies, tech companies that have, the founder and one or two other people, they're the salespeople, right? They're the customer support people. They're everything. They fully understand their customer and their customer's pain. And then over time, they're working on ways to scale that. And so we think the same. And so our next big strategy is not anything, unique. It's a bunch of tiny little ways to bring tech in to help us scale what we've already done fully human to human.
Right. Okay. And that would include what things like kind of what use of is it different communication channels that you can capture, that you can connect with people, and you also can capture and share kind of knowledge, or when you say lit things, what does that mean?
So if we're talking about the way they want to start engaging and learning, maybe they don't want to wait for a next EdgeNet Academy, even though we do them every 2 weeks. Right. They want to start getting into this stuff right away. And so even if they're waiting for their customer success person to call them back, right, and we need a few hours, in the meantime, here our email automatically churn gives them a support hub where they can have walkthrough videos and they can start to understand what's going on, where they need to be, and then the personal help comes. So right. we don't want to minimize the help. What we want to do is say, you may find it easier to have technology help sooner, so that by the time you get to the person, you're asking a much more specific, maybe more difficult question.
Right. Okay.
And then it ends up, it's easier for us to scale, obviously. And I think customers sometimes appreciate that too, right?
Yeah.
They might want to just see what do normal people need to see, and I don't want to have to be the one asking these questions. And so that is how all of our curriculum is created and runs.
Okay. And I'm just thinking while you were talking there is around if you do the a significant amount of face time, as it were, sort of face-to-face, interaction training, sort of a customer success program as part of the academy, and then you move on to that, and then it's the more of the sort of a distributed or remote sort of support. Do you feel that, or do you see a benefit in creating a community? So that you get people and suppliers and things that are willing to sort of share the problems that they've had and offer solutions, and so people then learn together as well, given that they might have spent the time together.
Yes, absolutely. And what we've found works really well is when the suppliers that come to an academy, we have anywhere from 10 to 80. And we have several scheduled in the next month that will be over 100. But that 10, 20 number, we found these people then, after the academy, we take them out into Nashville. They get to go to a hockey game. We take them out to dinner. We take them down Broadway, take them into several clubs. They really enjoy themselves. And those connections that they get with each other, we found early on we didn't have, we didn't encourage, we didn't really understand how to get them to talk to each other. And what they would do is they created their own communities. They literally shared business cards with each other, and still to this day buy Academy, right? And so I think that's one thing we want to reaffirm is that sometimes these smaller groups, right, of 10 to 20, because they've seen each other, right, they've met each other, they've had a good time with each other, it's a different sort of richer, more robust, they're willing to spend more time with each other and help each other. And so are actively looking for technology that will help us foster that, make that easier, and that's one of our next real big initiatives.
Perfect. That sounds great. So, Ben, is there anything else that you think that that something that's anything else that's notable about what you're kind of doing that we haven't kind of touched on that you'd like to share with our audience?
I think the main thing is I alluded to it in an earlier comment, but I can't underestimate. I would just sort of beg and plead for people to really, really imagine what it's like to be a customer.
Right.
And we say that, everyone gives a lip service, but it rarely, it still to this day, when someone answers the phone, when someone catches an email, one of the first things that companies will try to do is force them, will use very specific words that have very specific meanings to sort of trap the caller into figuring out what it is that they really wanted or needed, and then based on that, route them a certain way. And you can almost hear this in their tone, right? That it's just oh, you wanted that, oh, you mean that, oh, like the person, the customer that's giving you money doesn't need to know how you've defined your whole business. And we think the only way to really, really see that and understand that is to really spend time, and I mean hours, if not days, next to customers, right? And see how they're going, and then let them say, and as they're speaking, that is money, right? They're telling you precisely how they want to be treated, where they were stuck, and generally most companies will just sort of, they'll maybe nod, right? They'll maybe categorize it a certain way, but they're not. I think too often they're missing out. They're putting, a lot of times they're lower skilled employees out front touching the customer,
Right.
and hiding some of their maybe higher skilled employees, or even, let's say, their employees that are making more money.
Mm-hmm.
It really should be flipped, right?
Right.
Your most valuable employee that understands the customer the most should be the first one answering the phone, and then routing them in the right way. And that we're pushing that through our entire organization.
Perfect. So, Ben, I've got a couple of other questions before, which are a bit more self-indulgent for me, and I just wanted to get your take on it. So, I recently published a book back in the beginning of April here in the UK called How to Wow, and it's now kind of gradually coming out in the US. So, I just want to get your take on this. Can you tell me what Wow service means to you?
Yeah, it's empathy.
Perfect.
Empathy. And it is, sadly, it's easy to say, and it seems like it's rarely done. And empathy is where it's at.
Perfect. And so, building on that, if I was to ask you then what advice you would give to our listeners and readers wanting to deliver Wow service, what would you say to them?
Full unabashed empathy and not frustration that these dang customers keep asking this, or they keep not figuring this out, or they keep, right, like, it's so easy to build up a us against them mentality, especially if when a customer calls in and they're hot,
right, and
they're annoyed, something's not working right. It feels like they're attacking your family, right, your friends, and after a while, you start building up a shell, and that shell is the most toxic shell you could ever build up.
Right.
And so, to wow in customer service, you must keep that shell completely down and listen to what they say and build solutions that deal with those requests. And if you do that, your business can thrive. If you don't, it's a matter of time, or hopefully you're really lucky you caught an industry at the right time.
Perfect. So one final question that I always ask people that have on the podcast, and it's this: is there anything that you would like to shamelessly plug? Come on, Ben, you're a marketeer.
Yeah, I would say I would shamelessly plug another organization that is the name of the company is called Gainsight.
Okay.
And they have a conference out in Oakland each year called Pulse.
Okay.
And it is a customer success event, and it deals with many of the challenges. It's only 5 years old. They've been doubling, I think, maybe even tripling their attendance each year. And it will be the way of the future for many businesses, not tech. And I highly would recommend people find their books. Dan Steinman is one of the main thought leaders there, and they've been incredibly instrumental in helping us solve our problems.
Ben, that's been great. Thank you for your time and your insight and sharing your story today. And congratulations on your success in thinking differently and doing things differently in terms of building your service and experience for your customers. And thanks very much. That's been awesome.
Oh, wonderful! Thanks so much. I appreciate it. It's an honor's mine. Have a great day.